There are moments in life when silence feels safe, when keeping quiet seems easier than standing up, easier than confronting a lie, easier than questioning the powers that benefit from our silence. But here's the truth you already know: deep down, silence is not neutral. Every time we withhold the truth, we make a choice, not to protect ourselves, but to protect the very injustice we claim to oppose. Silence may feel like survival, but it's actually surrender. When you see something wrong and say nothing, you strengthen it. Injustice feeds on quiet compliance. Corruption thrives in the shadows of unspoken words. Silence becomes complicity, and so breaking the silence is not just about courage, it's about duty. The duty to truth, the duty to integrity, the duty to yourself. Of course, it's not easy. Speaking up rarely feels comfortable. It is far simpler to stay hidden, to avoid the backlash, to keep your head down. But integrity is never born in comfort. Integrity lies in the tension of discomfort, in the risk of losing approval, in the courage to face rejection, in the willingness to be misunderstood. If your voice doesn't shake when you tell the truth, it probably isn't costing you enough. And if it costs you nothing, it's not integrity, it's convenience. The world doesn't need more polished performances or carefully scripted words. What it needs is authenticity, voices that refuse to bend, hearts that refuse to wear masks. Authenticity is not weakness, it's the purest form of power. When you speak with your true voice, without trimming it to fit expectations, without diluting it to win favor, you release a strength that cannot be silenced. Pretenders can be ignored, but the raw, unvarnished truth cuts through noise. And here's the beauty of it: when you find the courage to speak, you're not just freeing yourself, you're freeing others. Courage is contagious. Every time one person dares to break the silence, it signals to another that they can do the same. A single voice becomes a chorus. A whisper of truth can grow into a movement that shatters chains. So I ask you today, what are you silencing? What truth are you burying because it feels safer to hide it? Whose freedom are you denying? Not only yours, but someone else's. By keeping quiet, this is the moment to choose. Will you remain silent and protect the lie? Or will you speak and stand, and live with the unshakable clarity that you honored the truth when it mattered most? Because there comes a time when silence is betrayal. And if that time is now, then your voice is not just wanted, it is required. Silence is often mistaken for safety. We tell ourselves that by keeping quiet, we are avoiding conflict, preserving peace, or protecting ourselves from harm. But silence does not protect truth, it protects lies. Every time we choose not to speak in the presence of injustice, we are giving strength to the very forces that oppress, deceive, or manipulate. Injustice is not only sustained by those who commit it, it is sustained just as much by those who witness it and say nothing. History shows us that silence has been the fertile ground on which cruelty and corruption grow. It allows wrongdoing to operate in plain sight, unchecked, because those who see it do not challenge it. Speaking up does not just expose what is wrong, it disrupts the system that depends on silence to survive. When you withhold your voice, you are not just neutral, you become a participant in the continuation of the problem. Silence becomes a shield for those who exploit others. It becomes the quiet consent that gives power to oppressors, manipulators, and liars. It is tempting to believe that not saying anything makes us uninvolved, but the truth is, it makes us complicit. The silence of the majority has always been the most powerful weapon of the unjust minority. Breaking silence, therefore, is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of alignment with truth. It is a refusal to let lies dominate the narrative. It is standing in the gap between what is happening and what should be happening. It is costly, yes, but necessary. Because silence never stays empty, it always serves someone. And if it does not serve the truth, it serves the lie. When you choose to stay quiet, you have already chosen a side. You've simply chosen not to admit it. Speaking truth rarely feels comfortable. It is easy to remain quiet, to preserve harmony, to avoid the sting of criticism. But the moment you open your mouth to confront corruption, dishonesty, or injustice, you step into a space where rejection is almost guaranteed. People may turn away from you, accuse you of being difficult, or even label you as a threat. That discomfort is not a sign that you are wrong. It is evidence that integrity is costly. Real integrity has never been built in the comfort of applause. It has always been refined in the fire of opposition. Discomfort is the ground where courage grows. If telling the truth demands nothing of you, it is not truth that you are speaking, but convenience disguised as virtue. The moments that shape character are the ones where you stand in the tension of risk and still choose honesty. Integrity demands that you tell the truth even when it shakes your relationships, threatens your reputation, or unsettles the image others have of you. In fact, the measure of your integrity is directly tied to what you are willing to lose in order to remain true to your values. Every great voice of change, every person who has stood for justice, has walked through the wilderness of discomfort. They faced ridicule, exile, and even danger. But what they refused to do was compromise. They knew that the temporary comfort of silence could never outweigh the permanent weight of betraying their own conscience. The truth will almost always cost you something. Your popularity, your safety, your acceptance. But it is in paying that cost that you discover freedom. Integrity is not about being liked. It is about being whole, consistent, and unwavering even when it hurts. From an early age, the world teaches us to wear masks. We learn to adjust our words, tone, and even our personalities to fit what others expect. We begin to believe that power is found in how well we can perform, how convincingly we can present a version of ourselves that wins approval. But that kind of power is fragile. It is borrowed, temporary, and easily shaken. Real power does not come from performance. It comes from authenticity. When you stand in your true voice, unpolished and undiluted, you tap into a strength that imitation can never match. Authenticity is not weakness. It is resilience. It is the courage to stand in who you are without apology, without bending to fit the mold that others create for you. Pretending may win you applause for a moment, but authenticity builds trust that endures. People are drawn to voices that sound real, even if they are imperfect. The rawness of truth cuts deeper than any rehearsed performance. A mask may protect you from criticism, but it also robs you of influence. When you speak with authenticity, your words carry weight because they are rooted in honesty, not strategy. The greatest leaders, change makers, and truth tellers have never been the most polished, but they have always been the most authentic. Their words carried the undeniable force of conviction. They were not echoing what people wanted to hear. They were voicing what needed to be heard. Authenticity has a way of breaking through resistance because it cannot be faked. People instinctively recognize truth when they hear it, and they lean toward it. That is why finding your authentic voice is one of the most powerful acts of courage. It is not about being perfect. It is about being real, and realness is unstoppable. Courage is never confined to the individual who chooses it. The moment one person dares to speak up, to break the silence, to stand in truth, something shifts in the atmosphere. Others who were once afraid begin to feel a spark within themselves. They see in that act of bravery a mirror of what they long to do. What once seemed impossible suddenly feels attainable, because courage has a way of multiplying itself in the lives of those who witness it. A single act of boldness can ripple outward, giving others permission to rise. History is filled with examples of this truth. One voice refusing to bow to falsehood has often ignited movements that reshaped entire nations. It rarely begins with the majority. It starts with the one who refuses to remain silent, the one who accepts the cost of being misunderstood. Their courage speaks louder than their words, and it sends a signal you are not alone, and fear does not have the final say. That signal awakens the dormant strength in others who may have been waiting for someone to lead the way. The beauty of courage is that it does not need to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes it is a quiet but firm declaration that enough is enough. Sometimes it is a steady refusal to comply with a lie. Whether whispered or shouted, courage has a way of traveling from one heart to another. It dismantles isolation and creates solidarity. What begins as one voice becomes a chorus, and what once seemed like an unshakable wall of silence begins to crumble. That is why choosing courage matters, not just for your own freedom, but for the freedom it unlocks in those watching, waiting, and longing for a reason to speak too. The time for silence is over. The world does not shift because people quietly hope for change. It shifts because someone is willing to stand to speak, to risk everything for the truth. Your voice is not small, it is not insignificant, and it is not replaceable. The moment you decide to use it with integrity, you break chains, your own and those of others who are still bound by fear. Speaking up will not always make you popular, but it will make you powerful in the only way that matters, aligned with truth, anchored in authenticity, and unshaken by compromise. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for the right moment. The right moment is the one where you feel the weight of silence pressing on your chest. That is your signal. Speak. Stand. Refuse to hide. Because when truth is on the line, silence is betrayal, and your voice is the revolution someone has been waiting for.